Hi everybody, welcome to Jenkins Boat Works. I am Chuck Jenkins. In this video we continue our work on building our Soames Sound 12.5 sailboat project. We are going to concentrate today on fixing a little mistake. And what I did in the last video is we were working on getting the transom knee attached to the inside of the transom. And once we did that, then I tried to sit it on this transom jig and it wasn't going together right. I couldn't get frame 14 to line up with it, and I just couldn't figure it out. So I am fortunate with the detail and the plans that we have from John Brooks that there's multiple pages and there's lots of different ways that you can take measurements on this page or look at a different angle of it and figure out how to make it all work together. So the fact of the matter is there's a little mistake on the plan page for the transom jig with regard to the angle of the incline. And so it took a little bit to figure that out, but I knew something was wrong because I couldn't get frame 14 anywhere close to being in there where it needs to go. So we're glad you're here, and quite honestly, this particular video is a good example of why I do such a detailed documentation on a boat build like this. My whole motivation has always been to help that next boat builder, somebody who is, taking on a similar kind of project, or maybe even this boat, and to try to give some heads ups and some pointers and help figure out some things that may be a little perplexing or difficult. And in this particular case, we went through quite a bit of gyration trying to figure this out. So that's what we're going to do today, is get this straightened out to where this all fits together now the way that you see it. And so we're glad you're here. If you happen to be new, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you do subscribe, click the little bell. That way you'll get update notifications on future videos. We do have quite a playlist already for this particular project, and so if you've missed some episodes or you're coming in new and want to try to catch up, we will link the playlist in the video description and also at the end of the video. Consider subscribing, give us a thumbs up, leave your comments. We're glad you're here. Let's jump in. I'm going to show you how I fix this thing. I am just been so perplexed with getting the transom to sit on this jig correctly and taking all kinds of measurements, sitting little clamps on here to try to sit the transom on here and have it have the right height and clearance back here to the back of this center beam. You can even see I sawed off a little edge off the back of here to get the transom knee to fit up here because it wouldn't sit up tall enough. My jig is goofed up because from here to down here, so this distance total is supposed to be 15 inches, and I'm way more than that. And you could see that my rail here didn't match up with this, although I had cut all these pieces, I thought, to the exact right size. So I'm going to have to pull this little beam dude out of here and either move it this way or back and then place this piece in front of it, well, behind it. Now, I still couldn't get it to add up as far as the measurements. You can see here I've got this big ruler clamped in here, and I've been measuring up vertically and trying to get the measurements to the underside of the transom knee. So I'm also been looking at this page here. So like taking measurements from from here down to the jig line, the construction base line, from the end of the transoms, about 7 inches. This is our post that, and it shows it on the forward side of this cross piece, but my cross piece is too far forward. So I'm gonna have to adjust this. But the other thing that I'm noticing, and part of why this isn't working, is because I believe there's a mistake in the plan. This shows a 43-degree angle of how you make this transom jig. I've measured this with my compass several different ways, and I'm coming up at 47 degrees. I think this is just a mistake. It's inversed off of 90 degrees and should be 47. When I take my protractor and put it on there, it's almost exactly 47. And if it is 47, it would make my jig work out right to where I wouldn't have this piece sticking up higher than this, because this 2-degree angle higher is gonna make that come up. The other thing it's gonna do is gonna make my transom knee higher off of this center beam. So I'm gonna readjust this transom jig and go to 47 degrees. I don't think I have to recut these, because I cut these at 43 degrees. I'm just gonna have it flush here, and then it's gonna be proud of this once I readjust it. It's gonna raise, and it's not gonna be much, but every little bit makes a difference. You can see here how it didn't match up there at all. Now, part of that's because this part is too far forward, but part of it's because the angle's wrong. So I'm gonna readjust all this and try to get myself reconfigured a little bit, and then we'll set the transom back on there and see where we're at. This has been perplexing. I trusted that this was a 43-degree angle without measuring it. I couldn't figure out what 25 inches from 14 inches was. There's just some little things on the plan that they're just little mistakes. It's okay, but that's why you have multiple ways of measuring, and that's why when it's drawn to scale, like on this scale, it's 3 inches equals a foot, or 3 inches equals a foot. So I changed that to 3 inches equals 12 inches. And what I finally come out with is a 1/4 inch equals 1 inch. And those numbers match up when I measure in here. On this one, it's 1.5 inches equals a foot. So on this one, it's 1/8 of inches equals 1 inch. And so, I've been taking all kinds of measures, like from the underside of the transom knee and from the very top of where the transom is before it meets up with the keelson. You can see it in there. If you measure down to your baseline, that should be about 30 or so inches, 30.5 inches. I'm trying to figure out frame 14, and I can't get frame 14 to fit in there. It's too tall. I've measured this off of our jig or construction line down here. I drew a perpendicular line here off the bottom of the center beam, and then measured this and measured this. We should be about 30 inches or 30.5 maybe up to where the keelson fits in. But I can't, I've got frame 14 laying on the bench over here. I couldn't get it to work out. And part of that is because the transom knee is not sticking up high enough, because this angle is off by 2 degrees. It's off, well, it needs to be 47, not 43. It's off 4 degrees. So, all right, we're gonna readjust this and see if I can make this work. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Okay, so I'm trying to readjust this thing. I want this thing exactly 15 inches back, and I'm gonna put that rear brace that's just kind of laying on the floor there, I'm gonna put it in front of this cross piece. So I've got this measured off at exactly 15 inches. And what I did is I just screwed a couple little pieces of plywood onto the top of there, exactly flush with this edge here. And then I've got my mark at 15 right there. So now that'll hold that in there while I'm trying to drive my screws in. So once we get that in there, then we should be able to put that back stand-up piece in front of it. I'm gonna make sure that thing's level, you know, vertically before we do that. Okay, so here is exactly what I'm talking about. I've got this board down here, 15 inches. The back face, this is the back of the boat. The back face of this board is exactly now 15 inches to the end of the construction jig, which is what it's supposed to be according to that plan. These now are just clamped to this, and I know that this is vertically level. So it's straight up and down, which means that these boards are straight up and down. What you can see is that this sticks up way more than this 43-degree angle is going to allow for. We're going to have to raise this thing up. And so it calls for 4 inches. You may be able to see this line down here. Maybe you can't. Right there, there's a line there. It's 4 inches. This is 4 inches. And then from there up to the top of this is 20 3/4. I'm going to double check that. It's exactly right. It is supposed to be 20 3/4 from there up to the top of this piece here. So I know that this height is right on both of these, and they're both 20 3/4. So that tells me then that my suspicion that this 43-degree angle is not right. So I'm going to pull this screw out and this screw out and adjust this and bend these support arms up to where they're flush with this. So let's do that now. I'm sure going to be interested to see how this thing sits on here once we change this around. I started double measuring and everything to try to figure out why I couldn't get it to work right. Okay. I should be able to just pull these because it should be able to pivot on this one down here. So of course, this angle here is not going to match up with this anymore. So we're going to pull that up like that, and we're going to pull this one up like that and make those match that angle of that support piece like that. And even that is, see, I cut this at a 43-degree angle too, so that's sticking up past that. So what I'm going to do is I want to make that, you know what, I'm going to have to cut those off because that's going to throw that off. It's not a steep enough angle. I need for this part to be flush with this, which I can do, except that I still got this part in here. I'm glad I didn't have that screwed in there yet. I'm going to draw a pencil line in there. And we're going to cut that off. Like I said, it's only about 4 degrees, but it's sure going to make a difference in this overall total height. Okay, we'll pull that out of there, go saw it off, and then try again. Okay, so I recut these off to the more correct angle. I also changed this. I had a board in the middle of this that was coming here to here, and it wasn't sitting straight, and there was no reason to have it in the middle of that. I just cut a piece of plywood at 27.5 inches, put it on here to hold these apart the right distance. It's a little lighter weight. I should be able to get that thing to sit in there. And now it looks like these are going to match up. So I'm going to clamp this back down like I had this before. Oh yeah, I can live with that. Okay. Now it just hangs on its cleats on this, so it's probably not the right height. Well, I pretty much got it centered. That's definitely a lift. Oh my gosh, that lifted that up so much. I'll get the camera and bring it around. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's way better. I'm sure I fixed it. Well, you saw how close to this center beam this transom knee was before, and this is going to help me with getting frame 14 in there. The other thing that I noticed, and I already measured the height of this, it's going to have to be trimmed off just a little bit for the keelson to come down, but the keelson bends from here down to here and then matches up with this, and this was way lower. It wasn't going to match up. So there were several things where you could just look at it and go, this just doesn't look right. It's not there. And like I said, I don't know that we've got the transom on here exactly right, but I can just tell looking at it that we're way closer. And you see what I'm saying? It's just resting on these cleats at the moment. So I don't know that we're perfectly centered, and I don't know that that's the right height. But part of what I do know is it's supposed to sit in, the bottom of this is supposed to sit in about 1 inch in front of the end of this, and it's supposed to be 7 inches high. And we are very close to that. So it's probably going to need to come up just a little bit, but we've made big progress. So, man, just the slightest little deal and you're screwed up. Yeah, that's better. All right, frame 14 can fit in there now. Okay, so this is frame 14, and this is what was causing me so much trouble when I couldn't get the transom to sit up high enough. And so here's the end of the center beam, and one of the things that I did is I sawed off this much off the end of here because I just couldn't get it to fit in there. And then I subsequently hacked away at that. Fortunately, I saved this, and I'm gonna just I already drilled my holes. I'm gonna mount it back up on there. Which way does it go? I believe it goes like that. Like that. And that's gonna give me just enough more length, and I should be able to put my little cleat in there. So, okay, so now I clearly still have too much at the top here. And one of the things I noticed looking at this, unfortunately, there is no frame 14 in this part of the plan, but we can see frame 14 here at 14 feet. And it comes up there, and it looks like it stops just below the transom knee. But what I also noticed is the faintest little drawing underneath there, on top of there, that looks like about another 1.5 inches that goes up on top of the frame. So what I think is it goes side by side around the transom knee. I pulled the transom off of there, but the transom knee obviously would be centered on the keel line. So going this way, and then that frame's gonna have to sit around it because at the moment it's too tall. So I know that the transom needs 1 7/8 inches. So I've measured out 1 7/8 inches this way to where I can cut this little notch out of here and hopefully slide it in there and underneath the transom knee to where frame 14 then is going to fit where it's supposed to. Because I mean, it falls way far back here. It lines up on these blocks here. So And as you can see, where those blocks are, I've cut off just enough of this to make it difficult. So anyway, it's fixable. Okay, more in a minute. Okay, it's not notched out enough. It's throwing this up too high. I'm not laying against these cleats. So. Like heavier each time I pick it up. Oh, that felt right. All right, so just a final couple of shots here as we look to see how we got this thing put together. We got our little blocks back in here. I screwed that little piece back on the end of the center frame here, the beam, and we did quite a bit of work on this little notch in here so that the transom knee could sit in there. And I do believe we probably get this cut off here. I'm not quite sure yet. We'll see. My next thing I believe is going to be to go ahead and start fairing this and getting a smooth bevel on here. But I've put a couple of little blocks down here to hold this. We are a good 7 inches now from the bottom to there. Our center line is level. We're pretty well in line with the center line of the boat, as you can see. So when we start worrying about the keelson coming down here, that'll be what connects the transom knee, all the way up to the stem up in the front. I just have that stem on there just to see what it looks like. It is nowhere near right, so we're not going to look at that anymore. But we did finally get the transom set down on our 47-degree angle, and the transom knee now fits in here into frame 14. So if you're struggling with frame 14 and the transom and how this goes together, I hope this is going to be a help. All right, we'll see you next time. If you like the video, remember to like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.